Hello everyone, welcome to Raid Shadow Legends video. In today's video we're going to be looking at the Riho Bonespear event where you pull 90 void shards and you get an opportunity, or you get a 100% chance of getting Riho Bonespear. Is it worth it? So let's put aside one of the caveats. And the first caveat is, do you have the void shards? Because if you don't have the void shards, you're basically in the situation of having to make a decision, purchasing decision, and I can't help you there. But let's assume for some reason that you have very good self-control and you manage to have saved yourself 90 void shards, or you're too lazy to void shards, and you have 90 void shards. So is this the right time to pull? So let's have a look. So we can do some maths, and I've got a spreadsheet that does all this work for me. So if you hear me typing in the background, you know what's going on. Let's only look at the legendary situation to start with, because that's probably the most important thing you're interested in, and then you can stop listening to the video when I talk about epics at the end. If you have 90 shards and you pull during a non-2 times event, so even if you pull during a 10x event, it doesn't increase the chance of getting a void legendary, it just changes the mix of what void legendary you'll get. You have a 36.31% chance of getting a void legendary out of 90 shards. So if you pull during a 2 times event, where instead of a 0.5% chance of getting a legendary, you have 1%, those 90 shards net you a 59.53% chance of getting a legendary. So basically, it doesn't quite double your chances, but it's pretty close on. So basically, 6 out of 10 people would get a legendary, whereas basically 3.5, maybe 7 out of 20 people would get a legendary during a non-2 times event. But the way that the Riho Bonespear situation works is that it changes the chances dramatically. Treat it like a super mercy occurring at 90 shards. So for the first 89 shards, you have a 35.99%, which is essentially the same as 90 shards. A 35.99%, basically a 36% chance of getting a void legendary. Then on the 90th shard, you have a 100% guaranteed legendary, which means that if you pull Riho Bonespear without mercy, what will happen is that you'll have a 100% chance of getting a legendary on the 90th shard, 36% chance of getting a legendary on the 89 shards preceding that, which means that you have a 1 legendary and a 36% chance of a second legendary, which certainly beats a 60% chance of getting a legendary if you wait for 2 times. So is it worth pulling for the Riho Bonespear if you don't have her? Yes, it is. If you have the shard saved up, yes, it is. And if you're only going for legendaries, yes, it is. Now, there are 2 other caveats. So we've spoken about whether or not you have to spend money. That changes things significantly, so let's not go there. The other question is mercy. So the way that the mercy system works for ancient and voids, as far as legends are concerned, is that for the first 200, you're on your own, and for the 201st pull, you have a 5% increase per pull. So that means that by 212, 213, you're at about a 99.6% chance of getting a legendary, and by 220 it is 100% guaranteed. So you'll never go 220 ancients or void shards without getting a legendary. So for example, if you are in a 100, if your mercy is at 130, so if you have pulled 130 void shards, not got a legendary, pulling another 90 will basically hit you max mercy, which means that you essentially have a 100% chance of getting a legendary. And if it's not Riho Bonespear, you have a 100% chance of getting another legendary. Although to be fair, if the mercy system kicks in for you, it means that you've gone a long time without a legendary. You're below the odds, if that makes sense. So the way the mercy system operates for those is if you can imagine a bell curve. To the left, you've got all the losers, and to the right, you've got all the winners. All that the mercy system does is cut the bell curve off to the left. So basically what happens is that during a 2 times event, at the 200th shard during a normal period, you're at a 63% chance of getting a legendary, and then the mercy system kicks it in, and within 20 shards you're at 100%. So what it means is that the bottom, basically 37% of the bell curve is gone. So no one, because Raid Shadow Legends is played by millions of players, if they didn't have the mercy system, there would be someone out there that could potentially go 2,000 shards without pulling a legendary, just with the sheer number of people playing, right? It'd be right at the bottom extreme end of the bell curve, but that doesn't exist because that's what the mercy system does to it. If you're like me and you religiously only pull during a two times event, at 200 shards, you're at an 86.6% basically chance of getting a void legendary, which means that it really cuts off that bell curve a little bit harder. So that's the first consideration. Where are you on the mercy system? Because if you're at 130 shards, or even at 120 shards pulled since your last legendary, the mercy count is going to kick in anyway. And if you pull 90 shards, you're pretty much guaranteed of coming up with a legendary. But what Riho Bonespear does is that unless you pull her prior, and there's a 1 in 36 chance you do, then essentially on that shard, that 90th shard you pull, you'll get a second legendary. So you're pretty much guaranteed 2 legendaries, although you will have earned it by being in the mercy system. Right, the second thing to consider is your epic roster. So there are 41 epic void champions in the pool that can be pulled with void shards. If you're late game, you may find that you have very few left that you're really interested in. For me, I'm down to basically 2. Gala Long Braids, which I'm sort of interested in, and Godseeker and Airy, which I really want. So basically, I have one that I want, one that I'd like. But otherwise, epics for me are now Faction Guardians and Chickens and books. So for me, it's just the legendary side of the ledger that I would look at. However, if you're earlier game, if you don't have a Seer, you don't have a Man-Eater, you don't have a Madam Ceres, you don't have a Ursula the Mourner, you don't have Umbral Enchantress and Basher and a whole host of Demitha, a whole host of those very, very, very valuable epics, there is an opportunity cost. So basically, if you pull 90 shards during a non-2 times event, you will on average get 7 epics. Whereas if you pull during a 2 times event, you will on average get 14, just over 14, 14.4 epics from those 90 shards. So basically, those 14, so basically 7 epics, 4 out of 10, so basically 3 of those epics would potentially be desirable on average. Whereas if you pull during a 2 times, you'd probably find that about 6 or 7 of them would be desirable from that pool, 17 out of 41, maybe probably 5 or 6. So if you have a depleted epic roster and you're trying to build it up, I would probably wait for the 2 times. Although Riho Bonespear is a fantastic legendary, blowing that number of epics for one legendary who's useful in probably a fair number of places, but is not basically going to open up the game like Demitha or Maneater or Seer, or even to a lesser extent, maybe Madam Ceres is. So Seer, Demitha, and Maneater are real game-changing epics. If you haven't got them, I would probably be still waiting for the 2 times. So that's the other caveat. So is it worth pulling for Riho Bonespear? Yes, depending upon how rich your epic roster already is. And the mercy system really doesn't make any difference, because essentially what it means is that you pull 89 shards at the normal rates, and the 90th shard is a 100% chance of an epic. So essentially, it is really very much a guaranteed legendary, with all the normal chance of getting a legendary along the way. Anyway, I hope that helped you make a decision. By the time you see this video, of course, I suspect that the event will have finished, and this will be of interesting historical information. But if you do find it valuable, I'm happy to evaluate further events to understand whether or not they are worth pulling for. Hope you enjoyed listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.